Welcome back from the advanced challenge. I know this one is hard. If you gave it a try, congratulations and good work. Let me show you my step-by-step approach here. And keep in mind, there isn't one way to do this, but let me at least show you how I would try to tackle this. For me, it would begin by creating a new layer. I like to use shortcuts, so Shift-Command-N gives me the ability to open up the new layer dialog and then name it. And I'll go ahead and name this one Cleanup, and then click OK or press Enter or Return. Once I have the cleanup layer, I kind of want to get familiar with what I have to work with. Obviously, we have the stop sign. That's glaring, right? We have the dress. We have our arm. But there are a couple other things, too. The porthole cover, a little bit of paint on the road. So just looking at the whole image, not getting too focused in on just one area. When it comes to working on this area up here, let's zoom in on that. What we're going to do, or typically do, is make a selection and then work with the selection. So I'll go to the background, use Quick Select, and with Quick Select, just click and drag over the area that I want to protect. And this is a technique that works really well. Like, you basically select the good area, and then what we'll do in a second is we'll invert that. And so good area is selected, protect this good area. And then in a moment, we'll make sure the selection's in good shape. Go to Select and Mask. Doesn't matter the other stuff, really. We're just looking at this edge right here. You can see if I shift it, I have more of the stop sign or less. So I want to shift that. Turn on Smart Radius and Radius. Smooth it out a little bit too, and add a little bit of contrast there. And then just shift this over so I can get rid of all of that red. Next, click OK. Just output this to a selection. So basically, select the good stuff and make sure the selection's in decent shape. Then on the cleanup layer, we will inverse the selection right here. Now we have everything except the good stuff selected. This is where it gets kind of fun, right? Because what we can do is use one of our healing tools, say Clone Stamp. And let me just zoom out. And with Clone Stamp, I'll use a really big brush, sample an area a little bit away from where I am, and then just bring that over, and you can see how I can just paint over that without needing to be too worried, because it's just hitting the area or covering the area that I want it to. Now, it looks like it got a little bit on his jacket and whatnot, so I'll grab the eraser tool. And I think that's because my brush was so huge there. So looks like it got there, but just making sure that I'm basically covering up that part of the image. And then deselect. You can do that by pressing Command D. Now, with this cover up here, I may need to go back and hold down the Option key on Mac, Alt on Windows with my Clone Stamp tool, and kind of just bring in a little bit more variety, or even cover up a little bit of the branch there so it doesn't look exactly the same as another area. So I'm going to do that in a couple ways and just bring over some leaves from some other areas to try to cover that part of the image up. Now, sometimes when you get to an area like this over here, I don't even think I would make a selection. Really, for me, I might just paint it away, especially because it's kind of small. It's not going to be that noticeable. Make the brush really small, and then you can get in and do some detail work. Do we need to get this out? Probably. So make a little teeny brush here and just bring this in. And if I make a mistake, what I can do is, I've made a bunch of mistakes there, right? I can use my eraser tool. So I'm just going to paint that in, then grab the E key or press the E key for the eraser tool. And then I'll go ahead and just go back along this edge here and make sure we're just seeing the trees there, or whatever those are, the shrubs. And that's looking pretty good. So sometimes it's all about select. Other times, maybe you're just going to hand paint it. Just kind of go for it. All right, so far so good on those edges. Next, let's deal with stuff we have down here. So go back to the background layer. Choose the Quick Select tool. So we're going to go ahead and choose that tool with a nice small little brush. We'll go ahead and paint over, or click and drag over the area that we want to retouch away. In this case, dress there, and a little bit more of the shadow down below. Go to Select and Mask. And in Select and Mask, experiment with Shift Edge. You probably need to extend it a little bit, or I need to extend it. And so I'm just bringing that out just a touch, and click OK. Now that's the area, in this case, I want to cover up. So on my cleanup layer, press the S key for Clone Stamp tool. I can start doing some Clone Stamp work. So I'll go ahead and make the brush a little bit bigger and bring it up here. And you can see that what I'm doing is just really quickly painting in concrete from one area to another. Option click, bring it in over here too. And what we'll need to do, of course, is do a little bit more cleanup work on top of this after we've gotten to this point. So It's not going to be perfect, but grab my spot healing brush and go over some of the texture areas. What that will do is just add a little bit of a different texture. Looks like I made a mistake on that area. Brush was too big, so a little bit smaller brush. Trying to work too quickly. All right, well, there you go. Just getting some of that texture over there. And then if we take a look at that, we can press deselect and then grab our clone stamp tool. And what I want to do is just look at these areas where I have a transition where I need to make sure it looks kind of natural. So here I'm going to go over these little transitional areas, looking to bring over a little bit of the concrete over here and just cover it up right there. If I make a mistake, you guys know what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to use the eraser tool. Made a mistake, or I'll undo the mistake. That works too. Grab the eraser tool and just erase it away. I painted over the dress there a little bit too much. Press S for the clone stamp tool and do a little bit more work. So just some detail work here. Again, nothing really rocket science, but just patience. I guess that's what makes things more advanced sometimes, is that it just takes a little bit more time and you have to double check your results. And sometimes you have to do a little bit of cloning and a little bit of healing. And that's what I'm doing there, right? So I'm doing some cloning and healing in order to get rid of those objects. Okay, let me zoom in and just do a little bit more work here. I'm going to zoom way in, press the S key to grab my clone stamp tool. And I'm going to work really fast here because I don't think you guys really need to see just a lot of this detail stuff. But I do want to highlight that sometimes you just work super fast like I'm doing this, not even caring about your edges. Grab your eraser tool, E key, and then clean them up. And so bring back some detail. If I bring back too much, I can always go back over it again. So press the S key for clone stamp. Make the brush really small. Do that by tapping the left bracket key. So in this case, I'm just looking to remove her arm from that area and make sure that this is all nice and good there. All right. So far, so good. We have removed those objects. While I'm doing this, I'm also going to hit up a few other areas. So I'll press the J key for the spot healing brush and deal with a couple other little things I'm noticing over here. There's some white text that's on the road back here. So I'll go ahead and paint that away. Option click, set my source area. When you get close to an edge, just make sure you set the source area and then paint along that, because that will give you the ability to retouch that away nicely. If I notice another problem, like she's wearing this rubber band, it's not super flattering. So I'll go ahead and Option click, set my source area and retouch that away as well. So as long as I'm working on one area, might as well work on a couple other areas. And that's what happens with retouching. You start to notice things that you wouldn't have noticed. So I'm using spot healing on the background up here as well. Okay, well, that was pretty quick. And I was trying to do it quickly to show you how I would actually be doing this. I wouldn't be talking, but I would really be snapping through it and looking at how to work on a bunch of different areas. Eventually, at one point, I would step back like I'm doing right now and say, okay, is this image better? Have I improved it? Sometimes you can convince yourself it's better because you put in so much time. And so you always need to turn off the layer visibility and say before and after, is it better? Well, yeah, I think it is better. Are there some more areas that I would like to fine tune? Sure. Yet the bulk of the retouching is done.